We are back. College football is back. It's a wonderful time of the year. A big game coming up on Saturday. We're excited. We're here at home in Tallahassee, but the Warchant crew is abroad in Ireland. We're going to be bringing you coverage all throughout the week, all throughout the weekend from the season opening kickoff. Florida State and Georgia Tech. But here today, we're going to talk about FSU recruiting, a mock class video. We'll get into that here in just a second. But
Yeah.
I want to start things off, Michael, by looking, at the schedule for Florida State and what are some big visit weekends that you think could really surge things in recruiting and ones that you're looking forward to in the 2024 season?
Yeah, I think the obvious ones, I mean, the two that are going to jump out to everybody is the Clemson weekend. That's always a massive one. FSU versus Clemson. You got the DJ versus his old school kind of matchup where there's going to be a lot of excitement with that. It's going to be a lot of storylines with that. But also, that's always one of the biggest ones where they bring in the big name guys for official visits and visits overall. I think that one's going to probably. There's a good chance you could see around 100 recruits there for that game. I think that one's going to be certainly a massive one. I think another one is the Florida game. That's always the biggest. That's the one where I'm expecting the most recruits, where you see the most, because you get a lot of in-state recruits. Where Clemson, I think, is more of the out-of-state guys that want to see it, or guys that are kind of on the borderline and maybe in the state of Georgia or something. But with when you have Florida in town, that's pure hatred. that's that's you're going to have all the top guys, and that game means a lot. That for some, like when you win that game, it really puts you a foot ahead of those other in-state schools when you win that game. So it certainly has a dramatic effect. And then there's several other weekends you have coming up. Do they play North Carolina at home this year? Or am I wrong?
I believe so. Let me
Okay,
check real quick. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
yeah. So Ben can check on that real quick. But those two definitely stand out to me. But there's always one like
Yeah,
the
November
North.
2nd.
Okay, that's one where that's kind of one of my dark horse like
Hmm.
weekends, because I feel like there's always going to be a kid that wants to go to a top tier game that's in conference that they play, and North Carolina seems to bring that out with sometimes when they host them. And so I think that could also be a weekend to kind of keep an eye on, that you could see some major guys come in for that weekend, because a lot of them are like, yeah, it's great to have 100 recruits on campus, but a lot of times the coaches want that personal time, and you're not going to get all that personal time that you want consistently when you have like 70, 80, 90, 100 guys there. So I could see some top-notch guys like a Justice Terry or somebody like that come in for that weekend, that want to get that individual and personal time. And I think that's what FSU wants. So don't be surprised if you see some that later that year, where you see some 4 and 5 star guys coming in that weekend. So that's one that that's kind of the three, I guess, games that I'm kind of keeping my eye on as far as the biggest weekends.
Well, we wanted to just start things off talking about that, but the bread and butter of this video, of course, is the mock class modeled after the story that you wrote for warchant.com. So kind of take us through that. What is the mock class and kind of what's the overall theme of it for this year?
Yeah, we'll do several of these guys. I've never done one of these. I've seen a lot of people do it, so I'm kind of gonna put my own spin on it when I do it. But basically, this is mock 1.0. There'll be probably 3 or 4 of them that I do, but this is kind of where I sit. Like, if the guy's not in there, then I don't feel comfortable that he would be in there. Um, that I think he would be in the class right now. Doesn't mean that he won't be. And I'll allude to some guys that I'll cover it, and Ben can throw some questions of big name targets that maybe I didn't have in there and why, and I can kind of discuss them. But overall, these are the guys that I feel, if signing day were today, this is I think FSU would get them. And so that's the gist of it. It's pretty standard and straightforward. And you can be able to see that when I do the write up. It's going to be pretty direct and to the point of here they're in here, and this is why.
All right. Well, we'll start off with current commits. As of
Yeah,
the time that we recorded, FSU is the 11th best class to the nation per the On3 rankings. You see five-star Solomon Thomas,
yeah.
plethora of really elite four-star commits as well. Tramel Jones shut his recruitment down a couple of months ago. Is there
Yeah.
any commits currently that you're kind of worried about or maybe on the fence with that they can
I
keep?
don't think there's anybody I'm worried about, but I do know that CJ Wiley's one that's very highly regarded. We know Georgia's going to still keep going after him. I do still feel good that if it today was signing, that he would sign with FSU. I feel very good about that. Probably felt even better than I did when he committed because I was so shocked. But a few games in, or at least he played last week, and then checking with Intel, I do. While there is a push, I do feel good that if sign day was a day, I think he would sign with FSU. So outside of him, not really too many more. We know they'll still go after other ones like Solomon Thomas, but those guys I'm not really worried about. I don't. So if I'm picking one off the commit list, really CJ be the only one because of SEC teams really still pushing to try to try to change his mind. But overall, I feel pretty good about the guys that are already committed to FSU. I don't get a sense of, hey, this guy's going to do this or this guy's going to do that, or hey, they're really thinking about this school. I don't think they're leaning another direction right now. Now FSU still got to finish it off. You guys like Malik Clark, CJ Wiley, those are guys you still have to finish off because we know South Carolina's going to still go after Malik, and I've already covered CJ Wiley with LSU and Georgia. They're still going to push, but like I said, everything I've checked on and the intel I've gotten on with people when I checked constantly, probably like 3 or 4 times, leading up to this video. Is there anybody I should be concerned about? And they said there was a very strong comfort of where they at right now as far as their commitment. So far so good. Right now, we'll see if that can continue. Going as the season kicks off.
Let's talk about some guys who aren't committed that potentially
Yeah.
could become commits down the road. I'm going to throw a couple names at you, and you can kind of break them down. So,
Yep.
American Heritage running back Byron Lewis. This is a name we've talked about a lot over the last year or so. Where does FSU kind of stand? How you feeling about that?
Byron Lewis will be in my mock draft, guys,
Hmm.
mock pick. So he will be on there. I feel very good about what FSU's done. Now, if you listen to the Miami side of things, they're like, well, they're probably not taking a second running back. Usually, that's code for me, like you ain't getting them. I mean, so now that may be true, but I've always felt like FSU was going to be very tough to beat, and I've kept that same consistency of how I view that recruitment. I'm around this kid. When I'm around this kid, I see a different vibe and feeling, and there's a different level of confidence of what he talks about FSU. So I feel pretty good about that pick. That I do think Byron Lewis will be in this class for FSU. I think that's one that I felt that way for a while. Probably even more so, yeah, after he visited again. I think late in the summer. But I just think you have the connections of Sertain with him, but also I think the connection with Johnson and just what they do with running backs is just really extremely appealing to him. And why wouldn't you be when you look at their numbers and what they produced? I think that's a very attractive thing to Byron, and that's why I think that's part of the reason. But I think a lot of it too is when he's at FSU, there's a different connection the way he talks about FSU compared to the other schools that are in the mix.
Next up, potential flip opportunity for Florida State, in-state kid Tony Williams, defensive back. What about him?
Yeah, yeah. Tony's one that he's visited a few times. Even took an official. He's committed to UCF. We know it's UCF and FSU. We know FSU still wants two more DBs. Tony Williams will also be in my mock pick for
Mm.
this class. I like where it's trending. I'm not saying it's over or anything like that. I'm just saying going into the season, I like the way, from what I'm hearing, of how the recruitment is trending for FSU. I think he's preferred by FSU. I think he likes them too, very highly. And I think there's a connection there that is also unique with him and Sertain that is just very strong. That I feel like he sees there a need there. He sees what FSU does with the development of defensive backs. We've heard so much about these guys in the spring and summer, but both from Ira and Corey, all those guys that cover the team of the development of what they've done with all the defensive backs they have, and I think that's very extremely enticing to Tony. And so that's a guy. If I was picking one, I would have Tony in that mock class.
Are there any other uncommitted players that you could see work their way into your mock class? Any other names that you want to?
Yeah, so I gave one DB. I think another one. There's actually a few, but two that really jump out to me. Ladarian Clardy is one that early on FSU was a leader. Then Ole Miss got involved, and then it definitely looked like it was going to be Ole Miss, and then he postponed the commitment.
Hmm.
And I think that's one that's 50-50 for me. That I could see him in the class because I feel like from a personal standpoint, relationship wise, that one's really personal with him because you have Rawls is on the team. You have all these Pensacola kids that he knows that are on the team that he's close with, that he knows exactly what he's getting into if he goes to FSU. And I think that's part of the reason why he decided to delay it, that he needs to think about it more. And we knew it was really close between those two. So I could see that working out. I'm not ready to make a pick one way or the other there, but I could see it definitely happening. I think another one is Shomar Arnox is another one that they recruited very heavily. That's one that I probably feel even better than the way I do with Ladarian because that's one that I know they're very heavy involved with. They've loved that kid. They really turned up the heat for him, and I believe he's committed to Southern Cal. But I think that's a guy that I could see that one going quickly. If things keep going the way they're going, where the push is still there, solid. I think that those are two guys that I definitely could see in this class. Like I said, it gets tricky because if you get Tony Robinson, like I'm saying, and then you get one of those two, well, they're only going to take two more. So that could that's why we do these mock 1.0s and 2.0s because it could change guys. But that's why I say I'm not worried about the defensive back position because I think there's several guys that they're very high on that I think FSU could still close in. But I think those are certainly a few two names that I would mention. Certainly, I know everyone's going to ask me about Usman Kromov. That's another one, that 4-star running back out of Lee County that I'm likely going to see this weekend. But I'm still working out that to see. Want to go see him play, but he's one where I've seen the intel kind of fluctuate where we hear some Auburn, we hear some Georgia, and then we hear some Florida State. Last week it was Florida State. This week a little more Auburn and Georgia. It just fluctuates so much that I'm not ready to kind of make a call there. I think FSU is very much in there. I think FSU is really high on his list. I don't think a decision's like a week away or close, but I definitely think he's a guy that wants to see. He wants to go to a game of each one of those teams before I think he makes a call. I think he really wants to experience that and kind of say, okay, this is the best one. So I think even though there's been hits that he might do it, or I've heard that for months, I just don't believe that. I think it's going to be one where he sees some of these schools and then he comes down to the decision. So he might be in my next one, but for now, I'm kind of waiting to see on that one. So I think those are a few of them. Obviously, receiver, there's nothing really to report there because they've knocked it out of the park. They have like three really good ones already. So I think they're sitting in a really good spot with all those guys. So I don't think there's an additional one for that I would put in there with him. Um, but the next one, there is a new addition that I would put in there. I just feel like everything I've gotten, this intel leads me to believe it's trending in this direction. And I think linebacker, 4-star linebacker, TJ Alford, I think that's a guy. He's committed to Ohio State right now. I just feel like when you put all the tea leaves together, you put everything together. He's visited FSU like 3 times, like even after he committed to Ohio State. And I'm not saying he doesn't love Ohio State. I think he does. And he's even said, like, I'm still open to the process. Um, I think TJ will be in the class. I'm kind of debating on Tavion Wallace. I kind of want to see him visit, and then I'll go from there. But I'm close on that one. I'll just say that. But TJ, I definitely I'm gonna put in there. I just feel like he's a guy that it feels like it's trending toward that direction. And granted, Ohio State could do some things on the field that really maybe catches attention. But I think with FSU, they just really garnered his attention and really just jumped out to him. And I think they're a program that just really jumps out. So I think those are some of the kind of new additions. So that's like I think 3 or 4 that are going to be new ones that I feel like that'll be in this class. I even covered some guys that are right there on the edge. So there's going to be more, but that's what I have for now.
All right, and you notice Michael said this is mock class 1.0, so that
Yeah.
means there will be others down the road.
Yes.
We're still, 4 or 5 months from early signing day, so
Right.
things will definitely change, and we'll have all the latest recruiting news for you here on Warchant TV, but also warchant.com. Right now we have a promo going on. You see it there at the bottom of your screen. For new subscribers, you can get 2 months of warchant.com for just $1. Use promo code FSU1. Hit that like button on the way out. Thank you guys for joining us. For Michael, I am Ben. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon for more FSU recruiting talk right here on the channel.